everybody, welcome back to another video here at my YouTube channel. Today we're going to make a couple of cards using the stenciled panels that we had left over from our last video. I'll put a link up in the top corner here so you can go back and view that again, or if you haven't seen that one yet. This video is just a little bit different today because I'm going to jump right into the cards, and all of the finished cards and pictures will be at the end of the video. It's just kind of the way it worked out. Okay, so let's jump in and get started here. We're going to first work with this double stenciled panel that we did. And we're going to make a fun vellum card. The cards today just feature fun new techniques, or they were new to me, of just extra creative cards. So for this first card, I'm going to need some double-sided adhesive, vellum, and some various dies. The most important piece is the vellum. So this is just a piece of vellum from Simon Says Stamp. It's a regular size sheet. I cut it down to 4 1/4 by 11. So it's just a top folding card. And I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. Put it in my scoreboard, and I'll just gently run my stylus along the down the line there. Don't press too hard on vellum because I don't want it to crack. I just need it to see, I just need to know where to fold it. So fold that over, and we'll gently crease that. Get our line there. Don't overdo it. Like I said, be gentle with it. Okay, so now we're going to take our stencil panel that we have. Nope, I'm telling stories. Oh, yep, there it is. Okay, I'm going to take my stencil panel, and we're going to cut out the center of it. I'm going to use my Waffle Flower A2 layer dies, and I'm going to use, for me, I used the, I think it was the 7th one in. So whatever rectangular die you want to use, you just want to be able to cut out the center panel. So I'm just going to lay that down in the center, and I kind of want to make sure that it is fairly centered because I'm going to actually use the piece that we cut out. We're gonna end up putting it back in there, so it will work better with the aesthetics of the card if you make sure it's kind of centered. And this pattern, I chose this background for this card because of the geometric lines allowed me to be able to line it back up. So I ran that through my die cutting machine, and then I'm going to set aside that center panel that we cut out because, like I said, we're going to use that. So now I have a piece of double-sided adhesive. This one is from scrapbook.com. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our vellum piece here, the card base that we have, and I'm going to open it up. Get all myself situated here. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put that adhesive on the inside of our, on top of the vellum. There's a lot of, different adhesives and advice about, what adhesive is best with what vellum and whatever. For me personally, I found that double-sided adhesive works the best. I don't like using liquid glue because it just, kind of goes everywhere. There's one, theory that says, hey, you could, put down a pool of liquid adhesive and then use a sponge to spread it on your whatever. To me, that's much more, that's too complicated. So I peeled off one side of the double-sided adhesive, and then I was trying to figure out, do I want to put the vellum on top of the adhesive, or do I want to do the adhesive to the vellum? So you have to really think through it because, because if you use double-sided adhesive like this, it's a one shot. You're not going to get another chance. You can't like peel it up and start again. So I decided to go adhesive to vellum instead of, vellum to adhesive. So I'm going to line up as best I can. Take a deep breath, say a prayer, have some faith, and boop, boop, down it goes. I was wondering, waffling, waiting, Just take your time. I'm gonna push that all down. Okay, perfect. Good to go. So now I'm gonna peel up the top side of the adhesive. And now that whole back panel of our vellum is sticky. Now we're gonna take our frame that we die cut from our stenciled background, and I'm going to line up that top corner with where I can see where that top corner of the adhesive is. So I'm gonna line that up with there. And again, it's a one-shot deal, so take your time. Don't be in a rush. Take a deep breath, say a prayer, and just get it in there. Get that down. Got that right where I wanted it. And there we go. So remember, the inside is still sticky. So we're going to come back to that in just a minute. So I'm going to set that off to the side for just a second while we work on the next part. So now I have another piece of paper that I don't remember what the measurements are. I'll have them in the description. I believe it's 2.5 by 8, and I scored it at 4. But like I said, I'll make sure to have the exact measurements in today's blog post that goes with this. So we're going to take the front panel that centerpiece that we cut out of our frame, and we're going to cover this little tiny card here, this little tiny folded note card that we have. And you'll see it's all going to come together. We'll just use some adhesive here. And like I said, these cards today are just cards that are a little extra creative. Just a little extra creativity. It's not usually in my wheelhouse, but I figured I'd step outside my comfort zone and do something a little different. Usually, I'm simple and go kind of girl. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take that little note card that we just made, and we're going to stick it back inside of the frame that we have on our panel. And this is where it's helpful if you use some sort of geometric pattern, because you can just line the lines back up. And this is going to help us be able to put a message on the inside of the card so that you can keep the outside of the card, very decorative. So we're going to do the front part of the card in just a minute, but I wanted to go ahead and show you the inside. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the front of the card. And I have 2 pieces of cardstock cut just slightly smaller than 4.25 by 5.5. And then I have double-sided adhesive sheets that are cut the same size. I'm going to use my stitched rectangle dies from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a frame. I've done this before in other videos. You just put the 2 frames together and run it through the die cutting machine. I'm going to put the white cardstock onto the double-sided adhesive so that when we run it through, it's already got the adhesive on the frame. Because like I said, I didn't want to have to mess with having glue or liquid glue on the vellum. I really liked being able to use the double-sided adhesive. With the vellum, I just think it makes it a much neater and much easier way to adhere things to your vellum. So I'm just laying down that white cardstock onto the double-sided adhesive onto the one side, and then I'm going to lay the frames down. And in retrospect, when I did this, I realized that I probably should have made the cardstock a little bit bigger. I had a hard time. I had to really finagle the frame to fit in there. And so I finally got it the way I wanted it to, but that would be my advice, is to make sure that your cardstock is a little bit bigger than the larger frame, because it'll just make it easier to get it lined up. So I'm just going to use some tape and I'm going to hold that in place, and then I will run that through my machine a couple of times to make sure it goes all the way through. And I'm going to hold that. And I added some extra tape here because I wanted to keep the frames together in the same way so that when I went and did the second one, the frames would line up exactly on the when we put them on the card together. So I didn't want them to be off. So little off camera, I took that and I ran that through my die cutting machine. Just put those all in there. And I came back and now I have the 2 frames. I just repeated the same process for the other frame. And remember they still have the adhesive on the other side. And these are the insides of those frames. And we're gonna use those so that, we don't waste, I mean, there's a lot of waste with card making, but I try to use as much as I can. So I have this die cut flower from Simon Says Stamp. I think it came in one of my card kits. So I'm gonna use this one. And it very carefully and very barely fit on here, but I, went ahead and just kind of squeezed it on there. I'm going to add some tape and I'm just going to run this through my die cutting machine. Okay, so now I have 3 flowers. I ended up cutting 2 more. I cut the one out that I showed you from the white cardstock from the with the double-sided adhesive on the back. That was there, that last thing. And then I cut another one out of just double-sided adhesive paper, just the regular double-sided adhesive. I didn't put anything on there. So I just cut that out. And then I cut another one out of vellum. And I actually will end up cutting a 4th one a little bit later, but for right now, these are the 3 we're gonna work with. We're gonna do some ink blending onto the vellum flower. I flipped it over because personally, my personal preference when I ink blend on vellum is to color the back side of it. So it's almost like it gives it sort of a stained glass look. And I'm using the same colors that I used for the stencil background that we made, the pool, the olive, and the navy from All to New. And I'm just going to come in and gently add some ink color here. Using my bone folder, it's a little trick I learned. If you're coloring, ink blending small, intricate things, just use your bone folder as a way to sort of hold it in place. And I think this is the one area of this whole video that I was able to speed up. The rest of it, it's a longer video, but that's, because I couldn't really speed a lot of it up because there's just a lot of instruction in it. So I came in and if you hold it up, you can't really see, but if you put it against sort of a white background, you can kind of see where your coloring is. And so I just kind of kept adding and, you know, getting it where I wanted to. I used the olive, obviously the green on the stem. And then when I kind of got it to where I wanted it to be and I was satisfied with it, then I was ready to move on to the next step. Remember, if you're coloring on vellum, it's just going to be a very light, soft color. It's not going to be a big, bright, bold color. So now we're gonna put all these together, and what we're gonna do is I have my vellum piece with some tweezers kind of set off to the side there because it's going to make it easier for me to attach it at the last step. So I'm going to peel off the back side of the die cut flower that we die cut with just the double-sided adhesive. And it was sticky, so I had to kind of took me a minute to get it apart, and the stem is really delicate, so just be careful with that. Okay. And now this is the white flower, and I'm going to put the double-sided adhesive that side down onto our white flower. It's almost like the double-sided adhesive is acting as the filling between the vellum and the white. You need to have the white flower behind the vellum, otherwise if you don't, it just gets lost on the vellum front of the card. So it helps to make the vellum color stand out just a little bit. So I think the adhesive must have come off there. It wasn't lining up correctly. So I got that all, and then it stuck to the mat. Okay. So now I'm going to peel off the top part of the double-sided adhesive. We got the bottom part down. Now we're going to take off this top part right here. And it was tricky because my fingers kept sticking to the flower when I was trying to get the release paper and stuff off. So now I'm going to use my tweezers to help me line up the vellum flower to be on the top. Now, if you have time to let your ink really dry on your vellum, whatever your die cut or whatever it is that you've ink blended with the vellum, that will help you. I did not want to heat set it because I didn't want the vellum to warp. So I could have let it dry a little longer, but I was impatient. I just wanted to get on with it. So it'll work out fine. Don't worry. So I'm gonna line that up and just gonna use my tweezers, and then I'll press that down, and then I'll push that. And with this flower, it actually worked out okay. The ink is a little bit wet behind there, but it actually kind of gives the flower a little bit of a textured kind of look to it. But like I said, if you're wanting your ink to stay um, put and not move, make sure you allow it to fully dry, even if that means leaving it overnight. So, okay. So now we have our pretty little flower. So now we're going to build up the front of our card. We're going to take our frame, and I'm going to add it to the front. And just remember, we ran that through with the double-sided adhesive. So I'll peel off this back right here eventually. Sometimes the thing that takes the longest is getting the release paper off of double-sided adhesive. Okay. Okay. So I tried to line up the frame so that it kind of matched the inside, or was complementary to the inside of the card with that little extra note note card that we have in the center there. So I'm going to push that down. Okay. So this part is just a whole extra. You don't have to do this part. I just, went the extra step, and even though you can't see the adhesive behind there, I went ahead and added that second frame on the inside just to tidy it up a little bit, just to make it all look really nice. But like I said, that part is totally optional. If the inside doesn't bother you, and like I said, with the double-sided adhesive, I really didn't need to do it. Now, if you use liquid glue, you're going to probably need to do this part. So it was just a little bit off. I think I had to just adjust it just a little bit, make sure it's all lined up. Okay, so you can see how it's starting to come together. And now we're going to put our flower there in the middle. And again, that's why I put the white behind the vellum, because if I didn't do that, it would have just gotten lost against the vellum front there. So I'll pull that off, and I'm just gonna put this right there in the middle, just like that. Push that down, get a good seal on that. And you can see it's starting to come together. And this is why I did that panel in the middle, so that when the front of the card is all, nice and uniform. So this is the fourth flower. Again, this is a step that you don't have to do. I just wanted to add an extra flower in the to cover up to match the frame on the inside, basically. So I cut that out uh, with some white paper with some double-sided adhesive. Just make sure that if you do it, you have to make sure that you cut up and not down. Otherwise, your adhesive won't be on the right side, because I didn't want, in other words, I didn't cut it out of double-sided adhesive. I cut it out of white cardstock that I had put on the double-sided adhesive, if that makes sense. So there we go. So I just added that in there. And again, if that confuses you, or that was the extra credit. That's the extra credit step. You don't have to, it doesn't really add anything. Like I said, I just liked having it a more uniform and cleaned up um, look. Okay, so we're almost done with this one. I come in and we're gonna add our sentiment. I have some silver foil cardstock and some more double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to just um, add the foil or the double-sided adhesive down onto a piece of this silver cardstock. Again, my kid could be in college by the time I get off the release paper. I'm gonna lay that down, and then I'll put my die cut on there, and I'll run it through my machine. Tape on there. Okay, so I actually had to run it through twice, because the first time I did it, I didn't do it enough. I didn't run it through enough times. That the silver cardstock that I have, it's a thick cardstock, and then the adhesive is thick as well. So it took a hot minute to get it to really, and it was a delicate die cut as well. So it'll cut it out in two separate words. And then I couldn't get like the little parts that are inside the E and I think the S or something had little tiny pieces in there that I couldn't get out. And so whatever, I was too by this point I was ready. I'm ready to move on to the next thing here. So I'm gonna just get that situated where I want it to be, and carefully and gently lay that down. And I think I was having adhesive issues at this point. Oh, I know. I was really trying to get those center pieces out of there, and they just wouldn't go. And I knew if I kept trying, I was going to end up tearing the die cut. So sometimes, those little things, you got to just let go of them and press on. So just going to get that lined up. It was like a, okay. All right, and we'll push that down. Got that all where I wanted it to be. Okay, and so now you can see I left the inside of that one. I wasn't too worried about that. But now you can see our card is pretty much complete. And this is why, like I said, that's why we did the panel on the inside, that little note card, because it allows you to still write your message, but it allows the card, because it's a see-through card, to still be really pretty and decorative. So now we're just going to clean up the back a little bit. I did want to hide those frames and stuff. So I have a piece of white cardstock cut. I think it's 4 1/4 by 5 or whatever, the slightly smaller than the back of the card size is. Sometimes I just don't always remember the measurements off the top of my head. So I'm just going to add that to the piece of double-sided adhesive. Lay that down onto there gently. Deep breath, say a prayer. Okay. And then I'm gonna pull up that release paper and I will just lay that down onto the back of the card just to kind of clean it up, just to make it look really pretty. We took all the other extra steps. We might as well finish it. Finish strong. Lay that down. Get a good press on that. Here are some final pictures and close-ups of this card that we've made today. I decided at this point that the video was getting a little long, so I decided to split it into two separate videos. So we will work on the second card in the next video. I'll have a link to that here as well. Have a great day, and I will see you again for part 2.